Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. In this micro lesson, I wanted to talk about how to improve chord progressions on the guitar. Now, we don't need a lot of fancy music theory for this. In fact, it's a very simple concept. We're going to try to find common chord tones that we can play and leave on for all the chords in the progression. So we can take a very basic chord progression and just spice it up to give it a little bit of a different character and a different feel. Let's grab a guitar and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so let's start with a very basic chord progression and see how we can spice things up a little bit by incorporating the chord tones from the other chords in the entire progression. So let's start with this. We're going to have a D. We'll go to an E minor. Then we'll go to a G. And then an A. So something very basic. Now that sounds fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but we can spice things up a little bit. So when you think about these chord shapes and you're looking at them, see if there's ways to leave the note from the previous chord into the next chord that you go to. So as an example, we have D. When I go to the E minor, instead of doing this shape, why don't I just leave this D down and use my top two fingers that were playing the top part of the D chord to play the E minor. So now I have it's making like an E minor 7 chord. But more importantly, to the human ear, you kind of hear that continuity between this note and both chords. And when we go to the G, guess what? That finger can stay down. And even when we go to the A, let's keep it down. So now we have this kind of constant pedal tone almost, or this common tone, throughout all these chords. Now you'll notice with this, that's a sus4 chord, and sus4 chords always kind of want to resolve. So to spice up the progression, we can do that move now, inside. Now I almost cheated and gave away something else we could do. In the first chord, let's go ahead and do a sus chord. We'll add our G on top. And now we're going to keep these two notes down. And this is coming from the G chord in the progression. So now, not only will we keep the D down, we'll keep the G down and add it throughout the whole progression. Let's see what that sounds like. So on the A chord, that didn't kind of work, right? It sounded a little too dissonant in my ears. So for that, we'll just remove it. But the idea, what I'm trying to share here is experiment. Experiment. Don't just use the same chord shapes that you've been using for 1,000 years. Go ahead and try and experiment and just see if it doesn't sound good, then just take it off. But it doesn't hurt just to try it out. So for this, we now have kind of this going on. That was ugly. So we came from this. Now it sounds like this. And there's one other thing that I think we can do to this chord progression. So we haven't really done anything to the G chord. We we've kind of just kept these notes from the other chords that we've been playing. We've just been holding that down. But the G chord is still kind of its original shape. We took our D shape and added the sus. For the E minor shape, we now added the E minor 7. And we also added the G on top. But for the G chord, we didn't do anything. For the A chord we did. We have that sus move. So for this G chord, let's borrow this A from both the D chord and the A chord. And that'll kind of lead into the next chord, right? Because after G, we go to the A anyway. So let's add that A in. It's one of my favorite chords. So it's basically, you can consider that like a G add 2 a second, or a 9 adding a 9. So before I go ahead and add that into the progression, let me again take us back to where we started from. It was this. Now we have this. That new G chord. The original. I certainly hope that you can hear the difference. Just by doing a couple of these simple moves, you can give a whole new vibe to the chord progressions that you've been working with. And maybe that was a bit much. You don't need to do all those things. Those are just basically for illustration purposes. There's nothing wrong if you want to embellish every single chord in the progression, but sometimes the music may not call for that. All I'm trying to do is make you think about experimenting a little bit by using some of the fingerings that are in the other chords to add to the following chords in the progression. That's a little tricky to say. But try to find some common fingerings or fingers that you can leave down on these chords, or same notes I should say, that kind of ring through all the progressions. And just experiment, have fun. You know, lots of times we start getting used to all these shapes so much that we just think that's the only thing we can play. And that's not true. Do you remember when you first picked up the guitar and you really didn't even know the names of the strings? And sometimes you would come across some really cool pieces of music because you weren't letting your fingers, you weren't letting your fingers do the talking. You were basically using your ear and your imagination to find the music that's inside of you. Well, that's another micro lesson down. I hope you found some value in it. And if you did, would you do me a favor? Would you consider helping me grow the channel by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell? All these things really do help me out, and I'm so grateful for your support. As always, I wish you a great day.